You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
Welcome to Autumn on the Air. Today we're exploring a topic that sits at the intersection of tech transfer, biopharma commercialization, and innovative finance, and we're doing it with a guest who's lived on both sides of that equation. My guest today is Ruben Flores-Saaib, PhD, Senior Director of Investments and Business Development at Ligand Pharmaceuticals. Ruben brings decades of experience leading teams in commercialization and partnering programs across therapeutics, life sciences, diagnostics, artificial intelligence, materials, and software. For 10 years, Ruben led the tech transfer groups at LA Biomed, now the Lundquist Institute, USC, and the University of California System. He joined Ligand from general inception, where he served as academic innovations and partnerships lead, spearheading efforts on new company formation and investment in therapeutics, synthetic biology, and life science tools. He has also held roles at BD Biosciences Pharmagen, Biosite, which is now Abbott, Chemicon, which is acquired by Serologics, and Millipore Sigma. Ruben received his PhD from UCLA's Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry. He is co-founder and former president of the San Diego Innovation Council and is a member of Autumn. What makes today's conversation especially relevant for our listeners is the story of Ligand Pharmaceuticals itself. Ligand has transformed from a traditional drug development company into one of the largest biopharmaceutical royalty financiers in the industry, providing non-dilutive capital to biopharma partners, acquiring economic rights to more than 100 partnered programs, and managing a portfolio of over 30 approved medications. The company has approximately $1 billion in deployable capital available for future investments and is projecting significant growth in royalty revenue in 2026. And critically for the tech transfer community, Ligand also provides capital directly to universities and inventors in exchange for royalties on future income streams. No equity taken, no dilution. Ruben, welcome back to Autumn on the Air. We're really glad to have you back on the podcast again, but this time in a new role.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be back. And yes, for the last 4 years and change, I've been playing a role in the investment world, which it's what I wanted to be the next stage and evolution in my career. And I'm excited to tell you about the things that I'm working on.
Well, we have a lot to talk about today, and I thought maybe the best place to start is to talk a little bit about your career journey before we get into what you're doing right now, which is absolutely fascinating. So, Ruben, you've had quite the career because it has spanned university tech transfer offices, life science companies, investment-orientated roles, and now you're with a publicly traded biopharma royalty company. When you look back at this incredible journey that you have, what's the through line that connects all of these different experiences for you?
I would have to say two things: curiosity and a desire to add value. My roles in industry have spanned R&D, marketing, leading teams, product approvals for the FDA and other regulatory entities abroad. But I think not having a vision or knowledge, for good or bad, of what I wanted my career to be, but rather to take advantage of opportunities that crossed my path that seemed very interesting and that gave me an opportunity to learn and contribute, is what led me to where I am.
And you've spent a decade leading tech transfer at LA Biomed, USC, and the UC system. I'm curious, given that amount of time there, what did that experience teach you about university innovations in terms of how they move or maybe struggle to move into the market? And how does that perspective shape how you approach your work today at Ligand?
Thanks for that question. When I came to University Tech Transfer, I had already spent 12 years at international life sciences companies, and 7 years of those in licensing technologies from universities, developing them in-house and helping them launch to the market. So these 10 years at these universities taught me that the technology transfer process is very inefficient within a university, and rightfully so. Universities, academic centers are centers for new knowledge creation. They are not centers for commercialization. With that in mind, understanding what are some of the processes, what are some of the decision makers, what are some of the mentalities, mindsets, considerations that academic centers have when they think about commercialization has helped the way I approach my work at Ligand today. Understanding what are the drivers and motivators towards not only commercialization, but also, as we will talk in a second, about potentially monetizing a future royalty stream, has been key in how I approach my work at Ligand today.
Now, I want to ask you one other question about your career journey, because you spent some time at General Inception as well, where you focused on new company formation and investment in therapeutics as well as synthetic biology. And that's really a step further down the commercialization pipeline that most tech transfer offices get to see. What did you learn about that from that experience about what it takes to actually turn a university discovery into a funded, viable company?
That's a great question. Unsurprisingly, what I discover is that what most VC groups or early stage funders tell to academic centers is true. And that is, you need a good business team to get traction and get the technology up and going. And I discovered that as part of General Inception. Creating companies, building companies from the ground up, and I think we did about 20 or 22 in 18 months. It's an extremely labor-intensive process that requires savvy business operators that have experience and have learned from their mistakes. So it is invaluable to have people and expertise in the real world. That is what is going to make a university discovery successfully transition into a funded, viable company. More so than the innovation itself, more so than the quality or the potential impact of the innovation, the team that actually works on these, including the business advisors, the CEO, the CBO, and any other team members that are going to add value, is what really matters most.
I do want to switch now and talk about Ligand, because when I was a baby patent attorney, I did some work for another client with Ligand. And at that time, it was a pharmaceutical company. But as many of our listeners know, it's undergone a remarkable transformation and evolution over the last few years. Walk us through how Ligand went from being a traditional drug development company to being a biopharmaceutical royalty company. That's quite a shift. What drove all that?
That's a great question. And yes, a very unique transformation for a company like Ligand. So let me start by saying that the evolution of the business model started quite a long time ago, around 2007, but actually accelerated under our current CEO, Todd Davis' leadership. As a drug development company, you have limited ability to diversify your portfolio because you have to invest in new programs, which are very expensive, time-consuming, with very little chance of success, as you know. Shifting to a royalty aggregator model allows us to deploy our capital to build a diverse portfolio, currently of more than 100 programs, which give us and our investors multiple shots on goal with diversified risk. Most of Ligand's early work in the royalty space was M&A driven into other companies or programs or platforms. But today, our investments and BD team, of which I'm part, will pursue a variety of deals, with M&A being one of them. Royalty finance, which we'll talk in a minute, is the most common type of deal that we pursue. So, with company demand for alternative sources of capital accelerating significantly over the past 10 years, we are fulfilling a need for those companies.
Yeah, definitely.
In addition, our current team at Ligand has tremendous expertise in the royalty monetization business and has executed billions in royalty deals over the past 20 years.
And it's really been remarkable because since completing this evolution, Ligand's seen incredible, dramatic financial growth, and it manages one of the largest and most diverse portfolios of biopharmaceutical royalties in the industry. So, Ruben, maybe for some of our listeners who might not be familiar with the royalty finance model, can you explain it in plain terms with respect to how it works and why it's been so successful for Ligand?
Yes, happy to, and thank you. I believe the reason why this model works is because it aligns incentives in public and private companies. When we provide non-dilutive capital to a company that is developing a late-stage program, which is what we focus on, you are actually in exchange for the capital, we negotiate rights to some royalties on the back end. You are aligning incentives between the existing investors, the management of the company, and the market needs. We don't see our returns until there are sales and these medications reach the patients. So I believe that alignment on incentive is one of the key drivers of this success. So as a public company, we're also not beholden to a particular investment thesis regarding a particular market segment. We're also not limited in time as a fund is limited in time to deploy their capital. We're beholden to our shareholders and can be flexible in our approach to win deals. There is limited capital for royalty investment at the pre-approval stage, which is where we deploy most of our capital. So that makes us play a very unique role in the investment ecosystem. So just to wrap it up and to emphasize, these type of investments provide flexibility to the management teams and can come along to complement traditional venture investments.
So how do you figure out and evaluate what programs to invest in, given you have all this flexibility on like a fund or a traditional biopharmaceutical company? I mean, because there's so much out there in terms of research and development that you could invest in.
Absolutely. You are correct. But the programs that we focus on are programs that are addressing highly unmet needs. What do those look like? They look like first-in-class, novel mechanism of action, a repurposed drug to fulfill a highly unmet need in the marketplace or in patients. The reason why we focus on these type of programs, and they are across the board, by the way, across indications, across modalities. The reason why we focus on these kind of programs is because we believe and we have seen that by addressing a high unmet need, there are better positioned from both a regulatory, clinical development, and commercial penetration perspective. Plus, they're going to have a high impact in patients. Our team also has the ability to diligence programs in any modality, in any disease, as is evidenced by our current royalty portfolio that spans many different areas of disease and many modalities and medications.
Just curious, how large is your team, given the breadth and depth of things that you invest in?
Ligand, our total company is down about to 42, 43 people, I believe. That's our current headcount. And I say down because at some point, Ligand, was 500, 600, 700 people. The deal team, and all of us on the deal team are actually listed in our website. It's about 10, 11 of us. So we do keep really busy.
I would say so.
We have a lot of fun, but we work really, really hard to fulfill the needs of these companies that are approaching us in need of capital.
Now, I know Ligand has economic rights to more than 100 partnered commercial and development stage programs with over 30 approved medications available to patients worldwide. Can you give us a sense of the breadth of that portfolio and the therapeutic areas you're covering and where you see the most activity?
Sure. All of this information is publicly available in our website. And what you can see in our website is we have 13 major commercial programs that are generating the royalties and payments for Ligand that we then redeploy in investing in other programs. The partners for these commercial programs include Merck, Amgen, Baxter, Jazz Pharmaceuticals. The therapies include infectious disease, kidney, oncology, cardiology, respiratory disease. Today, we've heard that one of our partners, Travere Therapeutics, got an additional approval for Filspari for a new indication called focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, for which there's no current treatment. So another highly successful medication is Ohtuvayre, which was acquired recently by Merck, which is the first dual actual COPD medication to hit the market in, I believe, 20 years. So truly, it's a unique, incredible breadth and depth and impact of medications and programs that we work in. We also list on our website our key pipeline products that are at late stages of development. And you can see there that, as recently as last year, we made our first investment into a very unique medical device opportunity partner with a large medical device company. But most of our investments are in therapeutics, including cell and gene therapy, as in the case of Castle Creek Biosciences, which are developing a therapeutic for a rare disease.
Yeah, and I want to go back to that for a second because you mentioned before Ligand's focus on areas with highly unmet medical needs. So talk to us a little bit more about how this patient-centered lens influences your investment decisions. Is it purely a philosophical commitment, a business strategy, or maybe both?
It is both. By having patients' health at the forefront of what we do and thinking about the impact of the programs that we're investing, we are more likely to invest and find programs that are less likely to face headwinds during commercial launch, rollout, and reimbursement. So we spend a lot of time diligence how the market would receive the programs that we evaluate.
That makes a lot of sense. And in addition to these programs that you focus on for unmet medical needs, I know Ligand also has another kind of arm, so to speak, in terms of its own proprietary technology platforms. Can you tell us a bit about some of these programs and how they fit into this broader royalty financing strategy and how they also help generate value for your partners as well as Ligand?
Absolutely. Our Captisol franchise is a cyclodextrin-based technology delivery platform that has enabled 70 FDA-approved products in the market. We have a small team based in Kansas that works with some of the largest pharmaceutical developers to deploy this technology and help with their solubility and bioavailability problems or challenges. The way this benefits Ligand is that we provide both the raw material and the formulation, and we get compensated by that raw material and formulation work that we do. And in addition, we receive sometimes royalties on sales of some of these products. To give you an example, the companies that have used the Captisol technology include Amgen, Merck, Pfizer, Gilead. In the case of Gilead, actually remdesivir for the treatment of COVID-19 is one of the medications that use the Captisol technology. The last one to receive approval using Captisol was SQ Innovation for furosemide injection for the treatment of edema in adult patients with chronic heart failure. That was just this year. So we have 17 products on the market. And again, it's throughout many indications. We have postpartum depression. We have oncology indications. We have multiple myeloma, and so on and so forth.
Wow, that's a pretty extensive list of companies as well as drugs and indications. That's really, really impressive. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, Ruben, and I get to the part of the conversation that I think listeners are going to find really, really exciting. And that has to do with how Ligand provides capital directly to universities in exchange for future royalties. Can you walk us through how this exactly works and what a typical engagement with a university might look like?
Absolutely. It really all starts with what are the capital needs of the university or academic center. What I hadn't mentioned at the beginning of this conversation is that Ligand invests about $220 million every year from its balance sheet. What that means is that we can deploy investments in the order of 6, 7, 8 per year, in the average 30, 40, $60 million. So the question for an academic center or university is, what is the capital need that they have, rather than, do I want to sell my entire royalty stream to generate some capital? We approach this a little bit differently. If a university has a capital need that we can fulfill in the investment side that I just described, which can range from 10, 15, 20, let's say up to $40, $50 million. And if they have either a commercial asset, but more importantly, a pre-commercial asset, just like we would invest into a company, we would happily deploy our capital to advance their royalties for an academic center or an inventor in a program that hasn't been approved. This is a huge differentiation between Ligand and other great entities, great companies that do work on the commercial royalty stream. So the engagement would be, what is the capital need that you're trying to fund? Are you considering selling the whole royalty stream? Can our capital, the amount of capital that we provide, fulfill your needs? And can we both come to a mutually agreed valuation on what the net present value of this asset represents for the university? That is typically the broad conversation. We can have many different variations of these, where if the university or academic center is considering only selling part of the royalty stream, we can look into that. Or they want to sell up to a certain vertical stripe, up to a certain amount of sales, for example, annually. we can look into that as well. The main thing here is that both parties, Ligand and the academic center, feel that they have entered into a mutually agreeable agreement. There are also options to structure deals, as the ones that I already mentioned, where the academic center gets compensated if there are outsized returns beyond those that were modeled at the time of the investment. So it's a conversation. It's a process of understanding what are the needs, what are the drivers, and then putting together a structure that works for the academic centers. I do want to emphasize that we can do the same with inventors. Should an inventor have a capital need? And again, the conversation starts the same. Do they have a capital need? Do they need to monetize partially some of the royalty into the future or all of it? And these conversations are always done through the front door, talking to the tech transfer office and making them aware if we're having a conversation with an inventor.
So, Ruben, for maybe a tech transfer professional who's listening right now and thinks there might be an alignment between their institution's portfolio and perhaps an unmet need that Ligand's looking for, what's the ideal first conversation? What specific information or context should they come to you prepared with?
I think what they need to consider is their pipeline of licensed technologies and the stage of development that those licensed technologies are at. We're going to be interested in programs that are at a phase 3 or registrational phase. We can also look at earlier programs, a phase 2 program, pre-registrational, if it has good initial data readout. Coming to us with that information, these are the programs that we believe would be of interest to Ligand. Not only the stage of development, but also remember, ideally programs that address highly unmet needs, which, by the way, most academically initiated technology development and clinical development programs by default address highly unmet needs. Most of them do, are going to be some of the key factors into an initial conversation.
Now, you were in a tech transfer office for a decade, so you understand the pressures that a lot of our listeners are facing, the tight budgets, the growing disclosure volumes, the need to demonstrate return on investment. So how does the availability of this non-dilutive royalty capital from companies like Ligand change the calculus for a TTO that's trying to do more with less?
I think there are two great opportunities to partner with Ligand for the benefit of the academic center, the tech transfer office, and patients. Number one, and really the most critical, I believe, is by helping us understand their pipeline of late-stage licensees that are in phase 2, 3 registrational, where we can go and deploy capital to help those companies get to the finish line, get their product approved, and consequently start generating sales that will result, hopefully, into royalties coming back into the tech transfer office and academic center. So when I was talking earlier about incentives and alignment, we are also aligned with technology transfer offices when we invest in their companies, because if their companies win, we win and they win. I mean the tech transfer offices. That's number one. Number two, the opportunity to monetize themselves directly an asset that hasn't yet been approved and taking that risk off the table for them. When we look at that option, you are getting a secure floor amount that you know you will receive for that program, regardless of the clinical risk, regardless of the possible non-approval, regardless of the commercial entry and future competition, IP disputes, and who knows what may happen. In addition, we can structure those deals in a way that if there's upside in the market, the academic center also enjoys that upside. So these have to be win-win situations. Those are two opportunities that we have to work with technology transfer offices.
So, Ruben, given that you must have seen some maybe misconceptions that TTOs have about working with royalty aggregators or maybe industry capital partners, are there some that you could share with us?
Absolutely. I think, the most common misconception is that tech transfer offices and academic centers think that Ligand and other royalty aggregators are the big bad wolf and they want to take away their most precious prize and baby. And honestly, I think what my colleagues in academia fail to consider is that we are putting our capital at a huge risk as well. When we come in and we deploy capital at a pre-approval stage, and if you talk to any investment banker or professional financial, they'll tell you the same. We are assuming significant risk in terms of where the program would go. We've seen many programs that we were excited about investing initially that are in late stage, transitioning to a registration study or in a registration study, where in spite of a great study design, alignment with the FDA, the hypothesis just doesn't pan out and the endpoints are not met. And that happens a lot more often than you want and than you think. And this is unfortunate for patients, it's unfortunate for the companies and for the universities. So we are assuming a lot of risks. We do this because we can absorb those risks because we have multiple investments, multiple goals on shot, as I was mentioning. Number two, the other major misconception is that, we, Ligand, wants to take off everything from the table, and that is not the case. As I stated before, it's about what are the capital needs or what is the amount that makes sense for an academic center to monetize. And again, I'm talking about pre-approval. I know that there are advisors that would tell tech transfer offices, it's better for you to wait until you get approval. You're going to get a better deal. And I cannot argue against that. 100%. If you get a product approved, you will get a much better advanced royalty monetization deal. But there's that huge if. if.
Yeah.
And I think most people just skip over that big if, which is a huge risk. I'm not trying to scare anybody. You can just look at the numbers and the facts and see that is the risk that we're coming in and taking ourselves.
Now, Ruben, the royalty financing model seems to be gaining traction across the industry. How do you see this space evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And what do you think that means for universities and academic researchers?
Yes, it definitely is gaining traction or is becoming more visible. And that is a result of the current capital markets, right? Traditional venture capital investors had been keeping a very tight purse. That seems to start to have been opening over the last few months. And what that means is that this has resulted in companies looking for other sources of funding like the ones that we can provide. Still, royalty finance represents only about 9% of all the capital raised, and less than 4% that is focused on development stage assets, right? So we believe that there's still a great opportunity in the development stage area of the market, and that demand will continue to accelerate. Whether equity markets are open or closed, we can continue to provide that capital regardless of what the equity markets are doing. So that's an opportunity for academically derived companies that are at the right stage to receive non-dilutive financing. Most CFOs that I speak with at these companies that we are considering investing understand right away the value of non-dilutive royalty financing. Now, this is not for every company. Most companies can accommodate it, I believe, but some companies have other capital stack requirement or simply management plans that prohibit them from accepting an investment in the form of royalty finance. But the vast majority of companies can and are interested in at least exploring or being informed of what this looks like.
So, Ruben, I read that Ligand has approximately $1 billion in deployable capital available for future investments. So share with us where you're looking to put all that capital to work.
Sure. Well, something that we haven't really spent time talking about are call it 4 different areas where Ligand invests its capital. We've been talking mostly about royalty monetization or truly royalty finance, because there's no royalty to monetize when we invest, right? Pre-approved assets where we deploy a lot of our capital. Other areas that we work on are M&A. So a part of our investment strategy is to acquire companies with valuable assets or partnerships. Through efficiency improvements or cost reduction, we can then realize the value of these assets through new royalty streams. We did that for Pelthos Therapeutics 2 years ago, and we launched our NitroShield platform-enabled treatment for molluscum contagiosum, the first at-home treatment for molluscum contagiosum. Those are, unique and situations that we find ourselves looking into every, I would say, probably 2 to 3 years. Project finance is the bulk of what we do, where we work with biopharmaceutical companies that have established proof of concept in return for a royalty contract on future sales. But we also do platform technology acquisitions. We have not only Captisol, but we have the NitroShield platform, which enables nitric oxide-based delivery. So those are some of the areas. Now, particular therapeutic areas, technology types, or stage of development that are attractive, I must say that we are not biased to any particular indication, modality, or type. We do continue to see a lot of activity on the oncology segment, of course. There's a huge unmet needs there. But anything from inflammatory disease to cardiology to pulmonary to kidney to inflammation are areas where innovative medicines, innovative treatments for highly unmet needs still have huge potential commercial returns in the market. And by keeping a broad view, long-term view into the market of what are the areas that we can invest, we continue to provide value to our investors by having a highly diversified portfolio. So really, we do not profess or think that we're experts in any particular area or indication, but we rather just follow programs in all of the indications that show highly promising commercial uptake.
So, Ruben, looking ahead for Ligand, what's on the horizon and what should our listeners be keeping an eye on?
I'm going to repeat myself and sound like a broken record. We're going to stick to funding new therapies that we believe would fill an unmet medical need. And, as our royalty streams increase, as our funding increases, continue to deploy more capital into the market. We believe that we serve a unique market niche by focusing on pre-approval, sub $100 million investments. There are many companies that exist out there. So, as returns grow, our investment activity into those segments will grow.
Well, finally, Ruben, I wanted to ask you, for researchers, inventors, or tech transfer professionals who want to learn more about Ligand's programs or maybe even explore a potential partnership, what's the best way to reach you and your team to have a further discussion?
Go ahead and send me an email. Send me an email, rfsaib@ligand.com. And let's have a conversation about your programs, about any questions, about any curiosity that you may have regarding this type of capital deployment into academics or companies' work. So give me a call, send me an email, send me a note, and let's start a conversation.
Well, Ruben, it's been great to have you back on the podcast again. Congratulations on the new role at Ligand. It sounds like you're doing incredible work, and it's been great to catch up with you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It's been a pleasure to be back here with you. And yes, I am doing amazing work, and I want to share the great work that I'm doing with my colleagues in the academic community.
Ruben, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a fascinating conversation about a model that I think many in the tech transfer community need to know more about. Your unique perspective, having worked inside university tech transfer offices and now leading business development at one of the industry's most innovative biopharma royalty companies, gives you a vantage point that our listeners will find tremendously valuable. For our listeners, we'll include links in the show notes to learn more about Ligand Pharmaceuticals, their royalty portfolio, and how to explore potential partnership opportunities. We'll also include information about Ligand's technology platforms for those of you working in drug formulation and delivery. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with colleagues who are thinking about new ways to fund and advance university innovations. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air with Lisa Mueller. Get social with us and share your thoughts. You can tweet us at AUTM or visit us online at autm.net. We'll be back next week on the air. Be sure to join us.